Hey everybody, this is Jesse P. Gilmore, Agency Transformation Coach and founder of Niche in Control, author of The Agency Owner's Guide to Freedom, and the creator of Leverage for Growth. I'm the host of the Leverage for Growth podcast, and I know that in order for you to scale your agency successfully, there are multiple shifts that need to happen within your mindset, skill set, and leadership style. I am on a mission to interview marketing and PR agency owners on their journey to 6, 7, and 8 figures and leverage the lessons from their journey to save you time, energy, and money to get your agency to the next level. If you find value in these episodes, watch the case study video to learn more about Leverage for Growth and how we successfully scale agencies at nicheincontrol.com/case study. That is nicheincontrol.com/case study. Corey, thanks a lot for jumping on. I've actually been very excited. I've spent almost the entire week talking about niches and whatever you call it these days, right?
Vertical specialization. That's what I call it.
Awesome, man. Well, yeah, this is ultimately, my company's called Niche in Control, and I know that you're even writing a book about this whole topic, and so it's a good topic to talk about.
Yeah, it's my favorite topic. I ever since leaving an in-house role at the agency that I used to work for, I asked myself, what question do I want to, or what problem do I want to specialize in solving?
Yeah.
And the thing that I love doing is helping founder-led agencies to sort of escape that founder-led situation that a lot of generalist agencies find themselves in, where they're running the sales. And so I've fallen in love with this problem of helping them to escape by becoming a vertical market specialist. That's certainly not the only way that an agency can scale. They've seen a lot of great SEO agencies and whatnot do great and scale really well. However, what I'm particularly interested in is this topic of scaling an agency by leveraging building an expertise within a vertical industry or within a specific vertical or industry. Yeah.
Yeah. And it reminds me of, we had done a webinar together about specialization, and you can specialize based around what you do or who you serve, or kind of a combination of those.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. I know a lot of people have a lot of questions, and I know we kind of have listed out some questions and different scenarios that people go through. And so today I would love to talk to you about those different scenarios and kind of get your understanding of, how you would tackle that or what advice you'd give them. And we'll kind of go back and forth more as a dialogue than anything.
Great.
And I know that a lot of people get stuck in the complexity of niches and trying to figure out, did I choose the right one, and a bunch of things. But one thing that I've learned in that process, helping agencies kind of figure out what that niche is, and focusing not just based around the kind of like the target company or demographic piece, but also more of that psychographic understanding of their current state, desired future, and stuff. What I've realized is that it's not really a destination. It's more of like a journey. And has that been something that you've also kind of experienced yourself?
I think, maybe say more about that, because I want to make sure I'm really clear about how the psychographics come in. Are you saying that you help guide your clients to focus on and identify and focus on a niche based on the psychographic of that specific market, let's call it?
Yeah. One of the things that we focus on is humanizing the message in the market, and really getting clear on what problems are you solving. What's the current state, desired future of your ideal client, and how do the services that you're offering actually transition from where they are to where they want to go. And it's a different way of looking at a niche. A lot of times people do base it off of like an industry or different things. We start looking at the holistic picture of also the solution. But a lot of times the clients that I'm working with, have smaller agencies. So a lot of them are either solopreneurs all the way up to maybe like 10 employees. I have a couple of clients that are around 15 or so. When we're looking at the journey piece, the founders' interests, their passions are a little bit more needed in order for them to kind of figure out what niche or specialization they have. Where it might be a little bit different with agencies that are a lot bigger, where it is solely focused around service.
So in other words, a method for finding a good niche to target is in part due to the founder and what they have an interest in, like an intrinsic interest in solving a specific type of problem, regardless of whether or not they all fall in an industry or, something else. Is that kind of what it is?
Yeah, because there's some things that are based around industry. Industries are easier to target. If you're like, oh, manufacturing, that's easy, right? But a lot of times, if you just focus on, manufacturing, you don't really have that kind of message that will pierce through the noise of a noisy market. And the reason why it's so important for a founder, especially in the earlier stages of the game, to have a passion or be able to rely on something that they're very competent in, is because they have that it'll show in their sales calls, if they're not passionate about it. And I find one of the biggest challenges that people face when it comes to niches and being able to figure out their specialization at the earlier stage is they feel as though that the value to a client is based around putting more things in a bag. It's like if you go to a grocery store and you're trying to get lasagna ingredients, but you just keep on putting more ingredients that have nothing to do with lasagna, and then thinking about value as just more things in the grocery bag as opposed to the actual recipe. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. What I've seen a pattern of success in the agency founders that I interview on my podcast is, and these are agencies that have verticalized, or in other words, specialized in serving one specific vertical market, whether it's roofers or, attorneys or dentists, whatever it is. The ones that do really, really well intrinsically are the ones that have some kind of connection to that vertical market, whether it's they have a familial connection through maybe their parents are, dentists or whatnot, or maybe they came from a career previous to starting the agency in that market, so they had a sort of a head start. They understood the major players and so on and so forth. But those things are also not required. Like I'm thinking of Alex Membrio. He's the founder of Cardinal Digital Marketing. They started off as a generalist, and they were getting crushed by all the sort of the challenges of serving too many different types of businesses. And he decided to niche into a vertical market, and they decided on medical practices because he genuinely wants to help people out. And of all the different choices that he researched, one of the reasons why he chose medical practices, specifically multi-location medical clinics and whatnot, was that he felt by serving that community, he would help indirectly help a lot of other people. So if these healthcare companies and these clinics are better off through better marketing and better strategy, then he'd be able to sort of fulfill his vision for himself and for his agency of helping more people. And so sometimes it comes down to that, right? Just, having a care for not only the people that you're serving, but also that industry. Those agency owners who can approach sort of verticalization or niching down from that sort of give a damn perspective. You got to give a damn in my experience, versus just treat a niche or a market based off of the spreadsheet. Well, there's a lot of businesses and they have a good budgets, and if we can get 0.5% of the market, then we're going to be successful. You need that, but you also need to layer on the the care aspect of that approach in order to be successful, in my experience.
Mm-hmm. And I think that that touches on the reasons on why I focus on helping agencies with the niches and focusing on the human aspect of things. A lot of times because business should be fun, number one, and it should actually like make an impact. I truly believe that entrepreneurs in general, they're one of the greatest gifts to the world when they can just let their vision be brought into the world and provide a great experience for people and make an impact. So the give a damn part, I like that.
Got to give a damn, and so much so that I've actually I've kind of coined a term called deep specialization, and it goes that's when you specialize beyond just the spreadsheet, and you actually have empathy for the individuals and the industry you target. That's the method that I teach.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I'm starting to realize a lot more about why I set it up the way. I never even thought about the empathy piece. I always just thought about the human aspect, and there is a feeling of empathy that comes from understanding a lot more about the human aspects of the person that you're trying to help. And being able to do that.
Yeah, the reason why, I'll tell you what, for longevity, if you want to stick around for the long run, you're going to go through some market cycles. You're going to go through, highs and lows. And it's those agencies, as an example, that leaned in during COVID are the ones now that are, growing 70%. There's this woman, Nicole, she has an agency called Break the Ice. And her focus is in the travel and tourism industry, and she's been around for almost 20 years. And of course, when COVID hit, everything was in lockdown. The entire industry that she was serving, entire revenue source from which she and her employees, sourced, was in a complete lockdown. And instead of kind of pivoting out, she actually launched a podcast. She wrote a book, and she didn't lose any employees. Revenue was barely impacted, despite staying in this very, very difficult vertical. And as a result of doing all this thought leadership and giving back to her clients in the industry itself, she's now coming out of COVID. She is now she's going to grow 70% in 2014. I think she doubled her revenue last year. And so that comes through having empathy. If you don't have empathy in that situation during COVID, when your focus is travel and tourism, you're out of there, type of thing, and you're going to have to start over.
Yeah, that's an awesome story, and the fact that you said right before that story that if you're in it for the long haul, you're going to experience a lot of different types of cycles. And I think that it's really important when you are choosing a niche to come from a foundation of like understanding why you're in there. There's got to be something that's pulling you as opposed to pushing you. And there's more of that intrinsic motivation piece. That I find that a lot of other agency programs that maybe service similar groups of people that I do, a lot of times they're just focused around like, what's the high ticket niche? HVAC. Okay, let's go into HVAC. And it saturates the market, and there's not a lot of that kind of intrinsic motivation piece that we're talking about here.
And guess what? Having that intrinsic care and give a damn, that's marketing. You're going to stand out because you're not the one who's just trying to make a quick buck. You're the one that's really interested in the growth of the HVAC industry, right? There's different tones, a different intention, different energy as you're coming into the market. And people who are in that market, frankly, the HVAC, business owners, God bless them, they're probably being inundated by everybody and under the sun to try and win their business, and that's a lot of noise, tremendous amount of noise. And so the one way to make signal is by being genuinely wanting to help.
Yeah, because that authenticity shines. And it can be felt rather than just heard. So one of the questions that I'm sure that anybody that's listening to this that maybe has not chosen a niche before or thought about it, how do I find my niche in a saturated market? That's probably one of the first questions, and we can kind of go back and forth between it. But what are your initial thoughts?
Well, my initial thoughts are, I would love to dig in. If I was asked that question, I'd love to dig into this assumption that there's a saturated market. My belief and my experience is that every market that's worth going after is quote unquote saturated. A lot of people are going after it, right? So that shouldn't prevent you from, developing an expertise in a vertical market. I always come from the empathy piece, and where do you feel a connection? Who do you want to help? Number one. Number two, who do you want to, what problem do you want to solve better than anyone else in the world? That said, there's a list of criteria I have in my book. You mentioned earlier, I have a book coming out that I walk through to help guide people through this niche or vertical specialization process to help narrow down the number of available niches down to a small sort of subset.
Yeah. I like how you immediately attacked the saturated market part of that question.
Yeah.
Because anybody that does the market research will realize which ones are available.
Yeah. Any market, any market is being pursued by, sophisticated, established companies, and on one end of the spectrum, as well as young upstarts who are, just launching landing pages and doing, AI generated, generative AI based, content strategies. Like there's no rock that's been that hasn't been turned over. So I think this quote unquote belief that it's saturated is it's a limiting belief. Even and this is even true in, gosh, I've been doing this for a while, but the attorney markets and even the home services, very, very popular verticals. I still think there's opportunity. I've seen small upstart agencies be very successful in these spaces.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess how I would answer that question as well, regardless of the saturated market piece, but finding the niche, I think there's kind of two main paths depending on what stage of business the agency's in. If they're kind of an earlier stage where they've had a few clients or they're just starting off or trying to figure that out, or they've only had like maybe one type of a client that fits what they would like to go after, then that piece where they're trying to figure out the niche, they have to do a little bit more testing and market validation and so forth, and go a little bit more into, like a testing stage and reducing the amount of risk it takes when you make that jump. But if people have had a lot of clients that might be in that certain niche, or they just serve a lot of clients that are kind of like that generalist agency, we're serving pretty much everybody, then it's really based around getting client feedback and getting to understand a bit more about what are the commonalities between clients that got great results from your services. What did you deliver? What type of business was it? Was it more of like that premium service or high volume? Getting to understand a bit more about those kind of things directly from client interviews, and getting client feedback is one of the things I'm a big, big proponent of that I find a lot of agencies are not actually doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking to your first point, unless you have a very strong, clear signal that, hey, I want to serve dentists or serve this specific market, I'm actually a fan of being more of a generalist, serving lots of different types of companies for a period of time, because it allows you to go from, a pure startup agency to having an operational business where you'll have clients will come and go. And over time you begin to see, hey, we're really good at this, and we're really good at serving this type of client, and these type of clients need this specific problem. And at that point, you're able to make a much more high quality decision on where to focus your agency versus just taking a shot in the dark and seeing how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. And depending on, so that kind of leads to a question that I wasn't really perceiving or thought that was going to happen. But so sometimes people think in that earlier stage that, let's just say that they're SEO and websites. That's their main thing. And they are trying to figure out who to target for SEO and websites. And they think that the targeting or the message resonance is not going to happen just because they haven't really gotten the experience there. I find that that's one of the biggest challenges that they have. And then they figure out, do I need a niche? And according to the specialization that we had done in a previous training, you talked about specialization being on, what you do, and then also on who you serve. So, would you say that they're already kind of specialized because their services are, more specific, or what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. There's this idea of specialization. Like to your point, it goes in. If you can be specialized in what you do. We are an SEO agency. We'll work with businesses, small and large, B2B, B2C. You hire us because we have a great SEO product. Well, you're specialized. You specialize in what you do. Or alternatively, you could say, hey, we just work with plastic surgeons. This is more of the other specialization. Like, this is who we work with. And yeah, we'll do websites and we'll do content and we'll do, a whole bunch of different things for them. But whatever marketing or digital marketing problem that they have, we'll do that because that's who we're focused on solving the growth problem for plastic surgeons. And then the combination of those is when you blend a specialization in what you do for a specific audience. So in this example, it would be SEO for plastic surgeons.
Sure.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because in business, I've always realized that as you solve one problem, another one emerges, and it's like never ending. But when you get to the point where you're focused on like the plastic surgeons, SEO, that kind of focus, you have a very targeted group. But then one of the things that I've realized just interviewing like 1,000 agencies over the last 5 years is that the new problem is based around having it to where your clients are not competing against each other. So it's like a different problem to have.
No, it's kind of a high quality problem, but definitely something that when you are working with local businesses, some attorneys don't want their competition across the street using the same marketing company that they do because they feel like they have a competitive advantage by working with your agency, and so they want to prevent that. So yeah, that definitely comes up, and there's playbooks to address that head on and be able to minimize the impact of your business, but you can't erase that completely.
Yeah. And I would say to anybody, so if for any reason, not necessarily that you're doing SEO for plastic surgeons, but if you have done that hyper personalization, you have some issue with the services and kind of like having certain areas where you can't compete and stuff like that, that would be a time, as long as you can deliver a premium service, to raise your prices or create a wait list and make it to where if you're not going to be serving as many clients, that ultimately you're still increasing revenue based around increasing prices. But, yeah. So I have a couple more questions. I like how this conversation's going, Corey. It's fun.
I love this topic.
Yeah. So here's another question. What strategies can help me understand the needs and problems of my target niche?
Absolutely. This is such a great question. You said it not too long ago. I'm a huge fan of actually doing client interviews. And there's a whole, in the world of product marketing, there's a whole world or a whole universe of different types of client interviews. You have user interviews, you have win-loss interviews. What I really care about when building a strategy to target a specific vertical is the buying journey. And the buying journey interviews are when you have an agency. Let's say you are a generalist and you've identified that you really want to focus on attorneys. You go to your attorney clients and you ask them, you have a client interview, which is a structured conversation. It's not a loose, casual, buddy conversation. It is a structured conversation where you're trying to elicit the how and why they bought from your firm. So there's a list of criteria and a way to do it so that you can get some really high quality information that will help you to sort of turn around and leverage that in your positioning and your messaging that communicates, alluding to what we were saying earlier, communicates that you truly understand this market. You have empathy for them because you're using their words. You understand how to articulate their problems better than they can, and all of those type of things. But it comes from those client interviews. It's a great source of information for knowing how to really to get to know them and how to ultimately, serve them better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool. I call it a "Why did you purchase?" interview.
Yeah, so important. And to your point, most people don't do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the things that we do with our agency clients, and I just finished a revised curriculum, and I don't know if you can see behind me, but I got like a whiteboard with a bunch of Post-it notes. But yeah, we actually build that into the operations, and it's
Beautiful.
just a touch point that we have built into our clients' agencies. And so over a period of time, they're able to develop and understand a bit more about why did you purchase and what results do they experience so far.
Yeah.
And it actually sets up for really what's most important in this whole journey is client feedback. Whether it's positive or negative or anything like that, it just gives you an opportunity to not only understand what is working and then also what needs to be improved for a good client experience. And so, yeah, I would say one of the main strategies, I think we're in alignment there with the why did you purchase or the informational interview and just understanding a bit more about their buyer journey and, even the decision-making process that led them to decide that this is the agency or the business that we want to move forward with.
Yeah, that's an important critical step.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right, I got another one for you. And this one, I think that you focus on a little bit more than I do, which is how do you evaluate the profitability of a niche before specializing?
Sure. Well, there's definitely a process that I recommend going through to become very clear on what vertical to target and basically to really dedicate the future of your agency on. It's a very important high value decision. And so, knowing that they are profitable and that things like there are a large enough pool of those businesses that it makes sense to focus on them, and that that there's enough revenue there that makes sense. There's a couple of benchmarks. One is that the target vertical has greater than 2,000 businesses in it, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if you get below that, it's probably too saturated with other agencies. Not a lot of opportunity for growth potentially. It's just slower. If there's more than, let's say, 10,000, you're probably not targeting specifically enough. You're targeting too broad of an audience, and so therefore your marketing, your positioning may not be as impactful as if you were more focused. The other thing that I talk about, and by the way, that comes from David C. Baker in his book, The Business of Expertise, I believe. And the other metric that I like is, does the average business in the industry that I'm interested in targeting, do they make more than $1 million a year on average? Like, throw all the businesses in that vertical together on average, what is is it more than $1 million? And the reason why is because $1 million at $1 million revenue at, let's ballpark, let's say they invest 10% of that revenue back into marketing, which is $100,000, and that's a year. And you divide that by 12 months, that's about $8,333. And in today's world, $8,000 does not go that far for marketing any type of business. When you include the website, the reputation management, PPC, paid social, your podcast, your content marketing, your SEO plan, on and on and on and on. The $8,000 gets chewed up pretty quickly. And if you're targeting an industry or a vertical that's making on average, let's say $200,000, there's just not that much money to go around. And unless you're a SaaS point solution, like an email platform, there's a low dollar figure, which, obviously we're talking to agencies here, so it doesn't really compute. So I recommend trying to target verticals where the average business is making over $1 million, so that that you're going into an industry there's actually cash available for people to pay you.
Yeah. Yeah. I was on a discovery call with a potential client, like about 2 weeks ago or so. And I was like, so who's your ideal client? They're like, a client that pays. I was like, that's going to be hard to target, I guess, but
yeah. I like those too.
That's awesome. Cool. A couple more questions. I think one of them that I want to dive into is, like, how do I communicate my new specialized focus to existing clients? So let's just say they are that generalist. They've decided to go towards lawyers or, whatever the focus is, how do I communicate that? And sometimes second, this question is, sometimes they get really nervous about making a switch to my website that I'm now focused around plastic surgeons when I might be serving somebody else that might not fit that niche. So I guess, what's your take on that?
My take is that your current clients who don't fit in that new vertical don't really care about the fact that you're now positioned to help plastic surgeons or attorneys, as long as they continue to get the value that they've been getting from you. Like, if nothing else materially changes for them and they're going to get the same account manager and the same results and the same attention, great. They couldn't care less, because at that point, it's all about the relationship. This positioning stuff, that doesn't affect them at all, unless it does. If it does affect them, then it's a different conversation. But pretty much almost every single agency founder that I've interviewed took that approach where, we went from a generalist to a specialist, and our clients are still with us. The legacy clients are still with us today, 15, 20 years later, the balloon maker and the pool cleaner, whatever that is. And that's fine. Frankly, from a practical perspective, you got to keep the lights on as an agency. You can't just fire all your parent clients and then just start from scratch. I wouldn't recommend that. And then when it comes to, switching over time, like, you don't necessarily have to burn the ships and, just say no to anything else that comes in. What I see a lot of agencies do as they're transitioning is they'll focus their sales and marketing towards a specific vertical, and they maybe reposition the website and the messaging, but they may be getting inbounds through referrals that of businesses that aren't in that new vertical. And I think it's a good idea to just continue to say yes until you don't need to say yes anymore. Right. And so, I would say, take a very practical approach. The vertical focus is about the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I was working with a client, and she's like, "Oh, I don't know if I change the website or the LinkedIn profile, I don't know. There's like a lot of issues that I'm foreseeing or concerns with it." And I was just like, "Do it by Friday," and then she ended up doing it. And then she's like, "What I realize is that no one really came at me, and it wasn't that big of a deal." And I was like, "Oh, nice." Yeah. And then, of course, I have a mastermind for 6-figure agencies, and then the next person was like two steps before her and was like, "Oh, I'm really worried about it." And then she was like, "It's actually not that big of a deal." So
there you go. I think people make it to be much bigger in their heads than it is. And by the way, your clients aren't going to your website, so they're not going to know unless you tell them.
Yeah, it's not like you have to do some company-wide or client-wide announcement that I'm now focused on these people. And
if you plan on firing them because for whatever reason, yes, you should talk to them and help them to understand why. But if it's going to be business as usual for them, there's not much to do there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that kind of leads towards something that I'm a big proponent of, and I experienced it in my own business. I don't own an agency, but and another thing that I teach agency clients is the power of a proof of concept. Are you familiar with this term?
Generally, yeah.
Yeah. The way that I view it is a proof of concept. You have to have 5 paying clients for the particular offer or service, or it delivers an understanding of the validation piece.
Yeah.
And I find that anytime someone's trying to figure out testing messaging, testing a new offer or a package or even a niche or any of that kind of stuff, you have to go through a proof of concept and being able to test, is it working? Is this service delivering what it's supposed to do conceptually? And I think that anybody that is trying to maybe switch from being that generalist to more of a specialist, and they're trying to figure out the communication piece, ultimately you're going to want to test communication with that new niche and go through a process of a proof of concept before potentially making a big switch. And maybe that is more based around those earlier stages of an agency. Maybe those people that we talked about before that might only have a few different types of clients, and they're trying to figure out exactly, I've only had one client in this one thing, what do I need to do? That proof of concept seems to be really important.
Mm-hmm. And it brings up a good point, which is that, proof of concept gets you evidence that what you've created is of value and there's a demand for it. But I believe that these things are always in draft. There's no final version of any of this. You're always going to get more information. You're always going to be refining and improving and learning new things. And as a byproduct of focusing on a vertical, you'll be able to, in my experience, accelerate that a bit, only because you're targeting a specific customer who has specific needs. And the longer you spend time in that world, the quicker you will pick up on the nuances that they care about that you, as an outsider, you wouldn't be able to pick up because you're just not focused enough.
Yeah, that kind of leads towards something I haven't really ever shared on my podcast or anything, but how did I infiltrate the agency niche? Because ultimately everybody asked me, like, you wrote a book about agencies and you haven't owned an agency. How did you learn this? And one of the things that I did that I'm just actually starting to remember and kind of teach my clients is that secondary research part. So not only was I getting kind of like discovery calls and getting to understand that, and I take copious notes. If you've ever seen me in like a call, I'm just like this typographer. But anyway, the secondary research that I did was, one of my mentors when I first started off, he's like, you're going to choose two different paths. Either you're a consumer or you're a producer. And you can't really make it big if you're a consumer constantly. And one of the best ways that you can get secondary research is actually take all of your social media platforms, like LinkedIn, Facebook, so forth, and just unfollow anybody that's not in the niche. And then start following all your top 100 or dream 100 influencers within there, right? And then subscribe to set up a new email, not your work one, but set up a new email and subscribe to all the newsletters that are based around that industry or niche. And what I've done is I've done that. I unfollowed everybody on LinkedIn. When I first started off, I had 2,000 connections from all different, probably some of my 28 jobs before this, and then I started focusing on only connecting with people that were my ideal clients. I did the same thing with Facebook. I started joining a bunch of Facebook groups all based around agencies, right? And I started taking notes on what were the problems that people, came up with, what were the questions that people were asking, and I started to do that. I did that over 5 years. And every single discovery call that I have, I take copious notes and I review those. And I've probably done about 1,000 sales calls or discovery calls over the last 5 years. And that is one way that I can speak the language. I can understand trends. I can do different things that others might not be able to do, that even might be an agency owner, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. It's great. It does take time to kind of saturate your understanding of the nuances of being in that vertical, the language, the unspoken cultural aspects of it, the true pains, the nuances. I do think it does take time. Unfortunately, it's not a quick fix type of, marketing thing where you just throw up a landing page and you could say, well, we specialize in agencies or whatever it is, and see immediate long-term results. It does take time. But the impacts are real. Like, you can build a very profitable business over time.
Yeah. And I think in the webinar that we did on specialization, you had talked about like 18 months. Is that kind of like a time frame that people, if they're making that switch and they want to gain traction and start, increasing their market share and stuff like that? Is 18 months kind of like at least a time horizon?
it's kind of a, it's a good benchmark to plan for. A couple other benchmarks, depending on the type of business you target, is 100 clients. So if you're targeting, painters, house painters, get to 100, that's your first big milestone. And as a result of having 100 or more, you begin to see the flywheel of referrals and whatnot. Mm-hmm. The other big milestone that I like to talk about is the 3% market share. And that presumes that you understand how big the market is that you're targeting, which is a lot of agencies, even ones who are successful in a niche, don't really understand how big or small their agency, their vertical is. Mm-hmm. But once you know it, you can, if you target 3% of that market, mm-hmm. That is a signal that you may be ready for your next vertical market. Mm. To get to 3% requires a lot of effort and a lot of success, especially for big markets. And once you're able to get to that 3%, you're probably at a position where you're able to systematize and be very process driven in that vertical, that you as a founder could lift your head up and say, okay, we're good on attorneys. We got the people, the staff, the processes, and the software. Everything's great there. We know how to go get more. Now let's go find the second vertical to go dominate.
What I love is that you're mapping out the milestones,
Yeah.
For people that are probably my audience, they're like 100 clients. Meanwhile, you're like, it's just a milestone, which is awesome.
Dream big, baby.
Yeah. Cool. And that kind of leads towards my next question where, and maybe this is probably a bigger topic, but, how do you, mm-hmm. if you've identified who you're going after, the niche, and how do you actually start getting more of those types of clients? And I think that one of the greatest things that you can do in an agency is switch from that kind of passive referral system to more of an active referral system through those informational interviews that we were talking about. And that sets up conversations about testimonials and case studies and stuff. And then you can use that in your outbound campaigns and inbound campaigns and so forth. But what do you, I guess, what's your kind of take on the attraction?
Well, so the three primary sort of phases of doing this. Number one is finding your focus, finding a niche or a vertical. Then number two is positioning. People want to jump right to what I call the attraction phase, which is when you start doing all the marketing stuff. But you really need to focus on the positioning of your agency. The people that we're targeting in pretty much every case are not professional marketers. They're not professional agency buyers. And that forces us as agency owners and founders to be able to articulate who we are and what makes us different very, very well. And so there is a process that you go through that includes the client interviews, understanding the buying journey. I also recommend going and analyzing and researching your competitors within that vertical market. So if I'm an attorney and I realize that my current agency is not working, I need to find someone else, there's going to be a handful of competitors that are going to get the default ones that everyone's going to look at. Generally speaking, could be Scorpion, could be rankings.io, whatever those are. And so as an agency who wants to win that business in the legal space, I want to understand how Scorpions position themselves, how rankings position themselves, so that I can begin to try and identify some white space in the market. I want to say something different. I don't want to just say, we try harder or we're better, right? You want to focus on being different. And so there's a process to analyze what the market's currently doing and where the open space is. And then the third step, which is probably the most important one and the most durable, besides, because in agencies they'll steal each other's positioning and all that stuff. It's it's very easy to do. So the thing that's very durable is a point of view. And we talked about this earlier around having an empathy for the people you serve in the industry. And so being able to articulate, when you work with my agency, you work with an agency who cares about the future of blue collar workers or whatever that is. And you need to be able to first develop that. And then once you have that, then you have to, again, articulate it in a way that is really signals that, that you really are here for them and you're here for the long term. Once you have all that, then you can start talking about attracting new business. And so with all that said, there's 3 different sort of approaches that I typically talk about when it comes to growing your agency. Once you have the niche or the focus, and then the positioning, that is, the 3 things are: number 1, inbound marketing, which the way I define it is making sure that your offer, message, and brand is in front of your target vertical buyer when they are in the buying process. So that could be everything from content marketing, thought leadership, launching a podcast, to doing paid ads, both on like Google and Facebook and LinkedIn, but then also doing advertisements in their association magazines or in these other places where they tend to get together. Congregate? Yeah, maybe congregate is the word I was looking for.
I was going to say conglomerate, and then I was like, no, it's congregate.
Yeah. That's inbound, making sure you're findable when they're looking. Number 2 is outbound. Outbound to me is traditional outbound is very inefficient. But what I talk about and I teach my clients to do is something that's called gift-based outbound, which is going out, developing a list of your target audience. You go through a process to get your 20% list, which is the 20% of those businesses that are perfect for your agency, and actually leading with a ooh, an earthquake.
You got an earthquake?
Yeah. It's okay. It's over. Wow. Leading. Yeah. Fun times.
I was like, stay tuned.
Yeah. I don't think my son's the other one. I don't think he felt it. So doing gift as a first touch outbound. And then the third one is relationship-based marketing. The empathy comes in. This is where you go and you actually meet with people in person, go to conferences, go to events, and you begin to focus on people like influencers in that space. That is how you approach it. There's a lot more there, but those are the 3 sort of the biggest levers: is the inbound, the gift-based marketing and sales, and then the relationship stuff.
That's awesome. I'm glad you didn't dive into like the strategies of client attraction before. A very fundamental or foundational piece, which is that positioning and getting to understand, where you fit the differentiation.
I'll tell you why. It is so easy to waste money on advertisements and landing pages and offers. If you don't have your positioning down tight, you're going to be there's going to be a lot of waste in there.
Yeah, I've noticed as we're kind of going through this, I'm also kind of associating niche and control and trying to figure out what is our differentiation and stuff. And one of the things that I notice a lot is we focus a lot more on like the mindset components and the time management components and being kind of like a master of yourself and how there's like an inside out perspective to business growth where we focus on the founder and making them the best version of themselves that they can be before focusing on the growth. But then the other piece, when you're talking about, the inbound, the gift-based outbound, and then relationship, what I've noticed, because I wrote a book, Agency Owner's Guide to Freedom. And what I started to do is just give it for free. So I have it on my podcast, and I have the audiobook for free, and we have like mini courses and stuff like that in our community, which is also free. And then now what I've started to do is every LinkedIn connection, I just send them the book. And it's been fun. It's having a good time actually distributing something of value to people. Yeah. And I had not done the gift based outbound until I was actually subscribed to your newsletter. So, I was like, oh, if Corey likes it, I'm worth trying it. But yeah, people love it. I've started to finally getting Amazon reviews because people are liking it so much. But yeah,
beautiful. That's wonderful. I'm so happy for you, and I love the fact that you have a book out there and you're sharing, your magnificence and your brilliance with the market. It's just great to see.
Yeah, and you got yours coming out. Since we're talking about books, do you want to talk a little bit more about yours?
Yeah, so everything we've been talking about today is part of a 5-step process that I take my clients through, my high-end clients, agencies doing greater than $1 million. We go through this process of becoming a vertical market specialist, escaping founder-led sales, simplifying your marketing. And so the book is basically the 5 steps I take my high-end clients through. So anyone can buy the book, go through the steps. There's actually an online workbook and a whole bunch of worksheets and checklists and SOPs that go along with that. So it's going to be I hope very helpful for folks who want to make this transformation in their agency. And so it's going to be available next month. It's called, yeah, I know, Anyone, Not Everyone. And it's the 5 proven steps to escape founder-led sales. So, yeah, so that's going to be coming out, and I'm hoping that it will have an impact in some people's lives.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it's anyone, not everyone. I love that. It's very simple, and I think I pre-ordered, or I'm going to pre-order. So if you're listening to this and anything is resonating based around specialization, and definitely check out Corey's book. And if you guys listen to either Leverage for Growth podcast, and you haven't gotten a copy of my book as well, if you're looking for ways of really growing your agency and making it to where you're not like a hustler, you're more of a CEO in the agency, you can check out the Agency Owner's Guide to Freedom. You can go to nicheandcontrol.com/book, or you can join our community at nicheandcontrol.com/community, and I'll give you a free book as well. So
that's awesome. So much value there, Jesse.
Yeah, man. Dude, it's been awesome talking with you.
Yeah, I love this. I love hanging out with you, and this topic is, makes me sing. So thank you for the opportunity.
And for anybody listening, and if this resonates with you, I highly recommend getting Corey's book when it comes out. Pre-order it. I know that when we launch this and put it on my podcast, I'll put links to everything that we've talked about so far. In the description.
Anyone.noteveryone.com. It's real easy.
Oh, sweet. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. Well, and then last but not least, if anybody also is listening to this and there's some questions that we have not answered yet, or that you want to submit some way, you can find me or Corey on LinkedIn, or if you want to send me a message, Jesse at nicheandcontrol.com, just ask your question. We might have to do a part 2, Corey.
That would be awesome. I would love that.
Cool, man. Well, I guess that's it for now. And
that's a wrap. Yeah.
Cool. Agency owners, if you want to transform your agency to sustain and grow without your direct involvement, where you can stop working in the business and start working on the business, where you can free up your time, delegate work more effectively, price and position your services to finally get paid for what you're worth, and have the team run the day-to-day, go to nicheandcontrol.com/case study now to learn more about Leverage for Growth, and also to book a free strategy session with us. We'll look at your systems, determine exactly what you need to do in order for you to scale this year, and to create a strategic plan so that you can live the life of entrepreneurship you've always dreamed about. Go to nicheandcontrol.com/case study now.